Good morning and welcome to this week's Jump webinar. Our recruitment discussion this week is, what does success proofing your business actually entail, and will you grow, stand still or shrink in 2023, 2004, the last part of 2023? According to LinkedIn, in July, they said 24% of the global markets surveyed said they will either fire or lay off employees in 2023 or 2024. Financial pressure during the recession prompts companies to find ways to optimize their budget while still keeping their hiring needs in check. And in-house recruitment methods such as employee referrals, internal talent development, also gaining importance as the cost of savings on recruitment and potential culture alignment becomes more important to clients during a downturn from there. Research conducted by Deloitte revealed that companies that prioritize talent acquisition during recession periods or downturn periods experienced a 17% faster growth post-recession or post-downturn compared to those who don't prioritize talent acquisition. And according to McKinsey's and company, they highlight that companies tend to prioritize talent with the essential skill sets during recession tend to grow again after recession quicker. The UK employment rate, according to the stats that came out of the ONS, were at 75% in May, and in June 2003 they dropped by 0.5%, so that was lower than where they were in February and April of this year. UK employment rate increased by 0.0% on the quarter to 4.3. So again, an increase in employment is driven by people who are not working. So it says that more and more people are getting laid off at the moment. Payroll employees in August were largely unchanged at 30.1 million, and the economic inactivity increased by 0.1% to 21.1%, and that's the inactivity because of people on long-term sick or things along those lines. And according to June to August, the total of vacancies dropped again by 64,000 on the quarter to 992. So it says the market is starting to slow down and start to there, but there are green shoots, but there's also fear. So how do you success-proof your business to ensure it will grow? So today I'm joined by the whole team, which is really good. As you know, it's a recording today because we're all sort of out on client site tomorrow. So I've been asked very, very politely by Heather not to come to question one because she said she didn't know any of the answers, couldn't answer any of the questions to you. Yeah. So I'm not surprised that if Heather doesn't come in on question 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7, but we will wait and see what happens. No doubt she wants to have a conflict with Mr. Jacobs at some case. But there you go. So question 1 then, given the rapidly changing recruitment landscape, what are some of the key market trends that recruitment leaders should be aware of in order to inform strategic decisions for their business?
Well, I think we should let Heather go first.
I was going to say, since you gave me that introduction, Howard, I'm going to take the first question. So, I did some research this morning for an article that I'm writing for Recruiter magazine, and one of the market trends I was looking at is turnover. And turnover of employees has gone up broadly between 15 and 16% to 22%. And in the recruitment industry, we have a turnover of 45% as an industry average. So if it's going up from 16 to 22, and the last data we've got is 45 for recruitment, we really need to understand what's going on with turnover in our businesses. Yep. And we can't, it doesn't matter what strategic decisions we take, if we haven't got the people left in our businesses to deliver on them, then we're in trouble. So I think we really need to be focusing on how we're retaining people in our businesses and how we're developing people in our businesses to be able to deliver any kind of service to our clients. So there you go, Howard.
There you go. That's a great answer.
You can't argue with that, can you? I mean, and I mean, would take an HR pro to be talking about that particular subject, and quite right as well. I think if I could just throw in a few things that I'm not sure are specific. Well, they're not specific to the recruitment industry, but they're fairly obvious things. So, you know, we're looking. I think clearly keep an eye on the inflation rate. and things like mortgage rates. So we know we're going into an election year next year. There's discussion now already about what date that's going to look like. We suspect that the current government will want to lig it out until the back end of next year, so probably looking at autumn some point for an election, a general election. We can reasonably assume that there'll be quite a bit done to stimulate the economy. And on that premise, I think keeping an eye on things like mortgage rates, if they start to lower, as they have done recently, that will stimulate the property market. Once the property market starts to pick up, you can be reasonably assured that that's a sign of people feeling more secure about the future. That in turn tips into what goes on into the recruitment market, because when people feel insecure, companies and candidates, we know they sit tight, they procrastinate, they don't make decisions, they'll delay making recruitment decisions when they're hiring, and candidates will often deal with and accept counter offers because of a sense of insecurity. When security tends to start to come back into the market, i.e. we start to see people buying and selling houses, construction organizations putting their foot down on building projects and so forth, and in particular around IT projects, when we start to see the handbrake coming down on those projects moving forward, then I think that you can start to reasonably assume that the markets will start to turn and start coming back in a very positive fashion. And I think that in general terms, we can assume reasonably again that we'll start to see some gradual improvements in both the permanent and interim markets as we enter 2024.
And he stops to take a breath.
That's me.
I think in terms of trends, one of the key trends that I picked up last week from the World Leaders conference that I attended is time to hire. And in the last year, the time to hire has gone up by just 1 day. So on average for permanent hiring, it's taking 43 days. In terms of hiring. So you need to be aware of those sort of stats, and if they're moving in a positive or negative way as we come back into better times or more structured times. So there's the market indices, as Paul and Heather have indicated, there's leadership. So things are changing at a very fast rate, at a much faster rate for your leaders. Are they on top of these indices? Are they on top of this data? Are they aware of what that means for their consultants at the desk? Are they aware of what that means for your collections team when they're collecting the cash, or your marketing team when they're going out to market? So I think there's an education piece in making sure that the leaders of our businesses are educated enough to know what's going on. And there's a training and development piece that comes with that. And then there's the market indices that tell us what's happening. It does look like interest rates are going to be 5 or 6% next year, so there may not be much change there. But certainly there are going to be more jobs available for us to be filling, and where there's churn, normally we do quite well.
So if we flip that on its head to what you guys are talking about, which are things that everyone should be tracking irrespective of what market that you're in, I think from a recruitment point of view, the thing that I'd be tracking is I'll be looking at my clients and what my clients are doing. What they say at any hard market is that 40% of your clients from the year before to the new year will need replacing, because they'll stop recruiting or they'll slow down their recruitment. So what are you doing with your client base to see where your clients have stopped recruiting and what's going on? On the other side of that is I'd keep a very, very, very close eye on your day set clients. Is if the client's not paying you, start to examine whether they've got CCJs or anything along those lines, because they're instant signs that people are having financial issues and having financial problems. So you need to make sure you control your cash. And the third thing I'd look at is I'd look at your cash flow coming in and out of your business to make sure that the cash is coming in quick enough to your business and you're not becoming what I'd call invoice rich but cash poor. So you can actually operate your business so it's not over leveraging your business and working in that way. So if we look at that in the context of growth strategies, yes, because there's lots of companies that grow during a recession. I think there. Could you share examples of recruitment companies that have effectively adapted to market change and experienced substantial growth? and what were their core principles behind their success?
I think the first thing to say is that there are many instances of organizations that we all know very well globally who set their businesses up and launched during recessions and global depressions. So obvious names that come to mind are people like Disney, Microsoft, Apple. These were organizations that were set up during very difficult economic times. And one of the reasons, and all of them have this in common, is that they succeeded to the extent they did, is that they had real vision. They had a very clear understanding of what they were trying to attempt to do, where they wanted to be, how they wanted to be viewed, and they imbued that sense of vision, direction in the people that worked for them, and continue to do that. They were courageous, I guess you would say. There's no, the point here, I think, is that it's going to sound odd to say this, but it's almost irrelevant in terms of what's going on in the economy with regard to the direction and goals and aspirations of a business. The two things are not necessarily something that should be correlated. I think the fact is that it's all about belief and understanding where your positioning is in the market, and then absolutely having the courage to go for it. And I can give you examples of recruitment companies that have done that, but I think the better examples are the companies that we all use on a daily basis, who have been incredibly successful and continue to exhibit that level of innovation and I think just foresight. And I think that's what it takes to make a great business, regardless of the winds of change that blow around them.
And I think it's about being really, and I know we said this before, being really close to your clients. So I disagree with you slightly, Paul, and it does matter about the context and the market. So the vision is really important and going for it. But in setting that vision and establishing what it is you're going to do, being close to your clients and understanding where your market's going, right, is going to be crucial to your success. So, I've worked with recruitment businesses in the past who were very focused on a particular market, and by being very close to their clients, spotted that market was actually in decline, and the clients were pivoting. And these are tech-based markets, and there's some great examples of new and innovative tech that's coming out. And if you don't understand the context and what your market is doing, sure, you can find yourself very quickly trying to fill jobs that don't exist anymore, and not having anybody who understands the new jobs that are being created, because there are new jobs being created.
Absolutely. Look, we don't disagree. We agree on that point. I think the thing is once you understand what it is and where your place is and what you want to offer to your clients, because you've done, as you say, you've done your research and you're clear there are gaps and you're clear there's an opportunity, then, as I said, I think it's a question of going for it regardless of what's around you.
And having that really, really clear vision. We are totally on the same page.
And I think it's to add to that, I think the companies that I've observed, both in recruitment and then in business books that I've read as well, are the ones that have made fast, clear decisions. So they've made their decisions based on all the information that they can get. And then they've had to pivot their business, the famous word pivot. And I would say if you want to grow in a challenging time, pivot your business to where the money is, to where the market is, and then pivot it again, and then pivot it again if you need to. Because it's about navigating your way through whatever turbulence that your market may be experiencing. And that doesn't mean, one day you're a healthcare recruiter, the next day you're an education recruiter. But it does mean that within the sector in which you operate, you may operate in primary care, you may want to add it to secondary care. There'll be something else where you can make a bit more money or collect it differently. There'll be something you can do, but make a decision. Don't have a board meeting and then the next month have another board meeting to review what you were thinking about, and then the next month have another, because by then the market may have passed you by.
Yeah.
I think it's all of those points, making that decision quickly and making that decision, wisely on the data that you have. And I think the recruitment agencies that I've seen and I've been part of that's grown substantially through recession periods, are the ones that have basically thought, hang on a minute, okay, let's look at our marketplace, and probably admitted to themselves that they are obscure in their marketplace, that they don't really have a massive foothold that they think that they've got. and then it's about how much more can you get. And to give you an example of that, in 2008, when the recession came in 2008, Adecco went out and bought loads of companies, and one of the companies that we bought was Spring. And I remember being given a large chunk of Spring to run, and I thought, I will compare our database versus their database, thinking Computer People was either the number one at the time or the second largest recruitment agency in the country from a tech point of view. There was a 4% overlay of our client base. So it's just said, how obscure were Computer People in our marketplace when we were one of the market leaders in that marketplace. So any recruitment agency, if you believe there is recession, then you will have recession, but there is opportunities in all of your marketplaces because you are absolutely obscure, irrespective of how ingrained you think you are in your marketplace. I can generally tell you that you are obscure. And if once we get that understanding in our head, then we can start to think, right, there is lots of marketplace to grow and take, because in every marketplace in recession, there are companies that are growing and expanding. It's our job to find those and work with those companies. So therefore, there is no recession for a recruiter. You're just a recruiter that can't find clients that are buying in your marketplace. So we need to get that into our heads and look at that. So when we talk about then success proofing, okay, a business often involves sort of taking calculated risks. Could you sort of discuss some innovation approach or unconventional strategies that recruitment leaders could consider to ensure that their businesses don't stand still but flourish in the marketplace?
Can I give you a people-focused one before Dave and Paul give you the success proofing one? Illuminate HR again, talking about people. One of the things I think was interesting as we came through the pandemic was watching the way different recruitment businesses responded to the risks that we were all facing then. And they really fell into two camps. There were those that put their arms around the people that worked for them and who held them close and prepared them ready for when we would come out. And there were others who let people go. Yeah, because they were dealing with the day to, the moment. And I think there was a really interesting calculated risk. And we all know which one turned out to be the right decision. It was a big risk. And I think it's a decision that business owners face whenever there is a movement in the market and there is, people start talking about downturns and recessions. Think about the long-term impact of that decision on your people. Sorry, HR, shut up now.
No, actually, I think you make a wonderful point. And, I think clearly, and I mean, Howard alluded to this point, keeping your eye on costs, particularly when the market's not as strong as it has been in the recent past, is very important. And one of the things that you cannot do is you can't carry people for too long, and you shouldn't do it in any market, but you certainly can't do it in this market. So I guess there's a difference between having people that are working really hard, are diligent, giving their best shot, giving it everything they've got during perhaps more challenging times, and those that succeed and those that are still trying, against those that are actually just being carried by the business. And I think that under those circumstances, and I hate to use the phrase deadwood, but I have used it. I think you can't afford to carry people. At the same time, to your point, Heather, and it's really important, we should always be in our industry in a state of constant recruitment. Finding great talent and then retaining that talent is critical to our success. So as you've just said, I think jettisoning, if I can use that word, just about people when you're feeling anxious, who could really assist you to grow when the market comes back, is the wrong decision. And furthermore, when you have the opportunity to take on people who have the right ability for you, even when things are a bit tight, find that extra few quid, because you are going to find it extremely difficult to recruit these people down the line. So you should always be in a heightened state of recruitment. And that is risk taking. But at the same time, we are about our people. If we have the right people in the business, we are successful. If we have the right leadership around those people, without the right people, you've no chance. So I think you make a brilliant point, and I'd endorse it.
And thinking of the sales consultants, to add to that, Paul and Heather, just a few tips that I've seen work. How you pay them is how they will behave.
True.
So if you want a different, or your business needs a different outcome as we go to the end of this year and into next year, what is your commission scheme? What behaviors does it drive? Are you focusing on contractors, for example, that you have placed that are coming to the end of their contract? Are you in touch with them to place them elsewhere if they're not going to stay where they are? Because the retention rate of contractors is about 4 or 5% across our industry. We're not very good at replacing contractors onto other of our client sites. Well, maybe we could reward our people in a different way to do that. I've seen that as a successful way of taking market growth in a market which is challenging. Also, looking at your permanent staff. I know of a company that looked at every single candidate that finished second in an interview that they didn't place for the last 18 months and worked out where they were, what they were doing, and were they happy. And they picked up, I mean, at least 10 new pieces of business just by speaking to those candidates. Not that they had work for them, they literally went and spoke to the candidates. So they're just two practical things that as leaders we can do to encourage and incentivize our people to get us through the changes in the market.
I mean, some great ideas. And I think before Howard jumps in here, let's not forget that in terms of deciding what your strategies should be and how innovative you should be, it all comes down to something very obvious, which is you have to be super glue tight to your clients. What are they thinking? What are their plans? What are their challenges? What support can you provide to them? And maybe not just in terms of finding them staff, but perhaps in a more holistic HR fashion. What can you do? How do you reinvent your services? I talked earlier about the brilliant businesses that we use. They're innovative businesses. And I mean, we need to be innovative, but innovative in itself without having close discussions with your clients is useless. You need to be very close to understand what they want. And then you've got to figure out how you're going to provide the solutions. So those things are super important.
So to jump on that, my view of unconventional or innovative approaches is very simple. Every recession that I've gone through, when we've started to really hit the recession, I always think that if everybody's moving in one direction, stop, turn around and look in the other direction, because there's nobody there, but there's lots of opportunities if you want to go sweep those opportunities up. And I think one of the things that a lot of recruiters tend to fear is change. And so to me, during a recession, if you want to get closer to your clients, you have to have a reason to speak to your clients, because they're not wanting to speak to you if they're not recruiting and moving. So to me, it'd be building new recruitment approaches, building new recruitment services, taking those recruitment services to your clients, taking the lead, be the first mover, take first mover advantage with a new recruitment solution, be innovative in your pay systems, etc. But taking those new solutions to your clients gives you an opportunity to get close to your clients and talk to your clients. And the same then that goes with your candidate base, talking to your candidate base. And what you were talking about there, Dave, is about tracking candidates and things like that. And building and mapping your market then becomes really important. So even if your numbers of requirements are dropping, you can still start to increase your placement ratio. So rather than placing 2 out of 10, 3 out of 10, you're placing 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, because you're working a better quality job and you're giving a better quality to your clients. But it's about getting close. And I think that comment that we talked quite a lot at the start of lockdown was, if you look after your staff and innovate your staff, they will look after your clients, and your clients in turn will look after you, the business owner, and come back to you in full circle. So to me, it is about looking after your staff. It's innovating, it's training, it's developing them to give a better and different sell, and going out to your clients and selling that to your clients, because that gives you the opportunity to get close to your clients. So as we move forward then, striking a balance between short-term results, because that's what everyone drives, it's that eyes down recruitment views, it's short-term results, versus long-term sustainability, it's crucial. So how can recruitment leaders effectively manage this balance when devising their growth strategies, especially in a market now that's really uncertain from an economic point of view, and from a political point of view, and from an ecological point of view?
Well, I think, Howard, when people think of this question, they think of short term as 6 months and long term as 2 years. and I would encourage us to think of short term as 6 weeks and long term as 6 months. Because if you're doing the same now, if in 6 months you're doing the same as you're doing now, you're going to be behind the market, because change is so fast now.
Yep.
That short-term and long-term strategies, they've never been closer.
Yeah.
And in 2 years, that's a lifetime away for a recruitment owner. Last week, LinkedIn had a massive event in New York with Spike Lee and Jacinda Ardern speaking, and they would. I didn't attend it, but the feedback, the output from it was. Toby Falston, who's the CEO of Robert Walters, was interviewed on Radio 4 yesterday in the news, and he said that at that event in LinkedIn, they said that 24% of all jobs will have to be reskilled by 2025. Yeah, so you think of that and think, actually the short term and the long term are really narrow for us. What are we doing about training? What are we doing about deploying?
Yeah.
What can our businesses, whether we've got 10 staff or 100 staff or 1,000 staff, what are we doing for our clients to help them adapt to a market that is changing really fast? So I think my answer to the question is bring your short-term strategy, your long-term strategy as close as you can together, and accept that in 7 months it may need to change again.
And also, what are we doing for our candidates to help them deal with the pace of change? Yeah, and their longer-term view of their employability. So, is there something we can do that's innovative for our candidates to help them stay skilled? And I was judging some awards entries, which they haven't been announced yet, so I won't tell you, but there were some amazing.
Have I won?
No, yeah, I haven't won, Howard.
Damn.
There were some amazing examples of recruitment businesses getting involved in developing candidates to have the skills that their clients needed.
Yeah.
Really terrific examples. I can't wait for the awards later to be able to talk in more detail about them. But I felt really inspired by what some businesses in our industry are doing to upskill candidates for their clients. Really innovative and creative.
And I think that, I'm going to come back to a point that I was making earlier about how do you know what your long-term strategies are? And I think Dave's point is very valid. We live in a very immediate environment. Things change, as we know presently, very, very quickly, and you need to be able to adapt very fast. And it's easier, I would say, for smaller businesses, SMEs, micro businesses, to be agile and adapt, much easier than for the larger corporations. And I'm going to come back to my point. I think that if you're looking at long-term strategies, longer-term strategies, how you need to reshape your business, it's got to come down to the leaders themselves to be close to their client base. And as a challenge, I would ask, I'm sure there are lots of people listening who are consistently talking directly to clients, but I think in some businesses that their level of interaction at the top with their client base, or indeed, as Heather says, their candidate base too, is, to say the least, sporadic. And that's not a criticism, because obviously people are very busy running their businesses. I get the pressures, but the moment you stop talking to the people that use your services, then you've lost touch with and you have a lack of understanding as to where the market is going.
And
it's very hard to do otherwise.
I think it's wider than that, Paul. It is, and I know you'll agree with me, it isn't just about talking to our clients and candidates. It's actually the leaders of our businesses facing outwards. Their head
Correct.
Instead of being so focused on the day-to-day running of the business, but actually looking out and getting out and networking with other organizations, either clients or candidates or other recruitment businesses or the associate. We've got some great associations in our industry, but just getting out there and lifting your head up and facing outwards.
I agree. And as you just said, look at how much, you're excited. You can't talk about it. You're excited about the things you learned recently as a judge. We often talk about the conferences and seminars that we visit and the interesting things that people say. And we're very, and I'll speak for myself here, an old lag, I've been around a bit. So it's kind of nice to hear different things, new things that I find stimulating, interesting. And I get, if you like, refueled because of that information.
Definitely.
So I think I look at this when you start to look at building, striking the balance between growth strategies. you start to look at the strategy that you have already. And obviously there's lots of momentum that's already behind that strategy. And therefore, sometimes taking a knee-jerk reaction in the marketplace and changing strategy drastically massively slows down your capability of moving forward, because it slows down all your momentum as you're having to sort of develop a new marketplace, etc. I'm not saying that's not something that you shouldn't have to do, but I also think you should start to look at the strategy that you have now and how do you slightly diversify off that strategy so you still keep the momentum in your business. Now that could be, when you're looking at growth, how do you bring experienced talent into your business that when the market starts to move again, then those people will start to impact in your business. And you talk about the stats that we said earlier on, that those clients that bring people into the business that have high talent and they're looking for talent consistently grow quicker when the market starts to move. So we've got to start to think that, do you do a knee-jerk reaction and a 360 and a pivot, or do you look at your strategy, look at what you can actually do within that strategy and look at how you can upskill your staff, look how you can bring better staff in that will help upskill from there, but then look at how you look after your client base. And I think sometimes straying drastically off that strategy is the wrong thing to do, because it slows you down too much and therefore you can't recover when recovery starts because you're still behind the curve. So I think you should look at your own strategy first and see what you're doing on that strategy. So if we look at then recruitment, then is heavily reliant then on nurturing relationships, and this is what we've been talking about, whether it be candidate, consultant, or whether it be client. What strategies do you recommend then for recruitment leaders to enhance their client, candidate, and consultant relationships, leading to a stronger foundation for growth?
I mean, I've had a few clients quite recently hold some tremendous client events, educationals, if you want to call them that, and they've had tremendous turnout. People are, we talked about this just a second ago. Everybody has a hunger now to keep ahead of the game, to at least understand what's coming round the corner, and where you provide opportunities for people to receive a level of upskilling, or as we were talking about with candidates, or to provide your clients with new information that's relevant to them, that's relevant to their business, relevant to their industry sectors, they're keen to turn up. And I mean, this is a long way away from just offering candidates. This is now providing support, direction, data, information, topics of great interest to clients and indeed candidates. And it's those events particularly that I think generate a great deal of loyalty towards brands and ultimately provide extra business. You've got to always be looking for what else you can offer your clients over and above what we are paid to do. And we know that a lot of the free stuff, if I can put it that way, that we provide to people is hugely valuable to them. And we're in a great position to provide that information because we're networking, to use that phrase, with employers and candidates consistently every single day. We are the channel for that information. So it's really, I think, incumbent upon us to do everything we can to provide our clients and candidates, particularly clients, with the direction that they seek and the information they seek to help them run their businesses correctly.
The other example similar to that, Paul, that I've seen work really well is where you really understand all of the clients in the supply chain in your market. You can, because you've got relationships with all of them, you can be the person who will introduce people, one client to another client where there's a business opportunity for them. So nothing to do with recruitment, but you're then facilitating those introductions to help them grow their own businesses. And I've seen that work incredibly successfully.
I love that, and I think that's a great example. But I think that's also, if you like, a motto for life, that if you give out, you get back 10 times over. Generally speaking,
100%.
give for free. Don't ask what's in it for you. And the world turns in a funny place, a funny way. You tend to get back so much more than you give when you adopt that attitude.
Absolutely.
And I think there's a simple thing that everybody could do, just literally straight after watching this webinar. Write down what can you do with your clients rather than what can you do for them. Mm-hmm. What you can do for them, of course, is find them people and give them data and all the things that we've spoken about. But what can you do together? and come up and maybe have a discussion with your team as well, because they're the things that will cement the relationship, that will enable us as recruitment owners to get through challenging times and look ahead for next year, but also the clients. And the stuff that you do together will really make a difference as you plan for next year.
Remember rightly, when the lockdown came, we were asking clients a simple question about how deep their client relationship was. And most clients were saying, I've got lots of really deep relationships. And we said, okay, well, let's test that. How many of your clients called you to see whether you were okay during the lockdown? And we suddenly found very few clients were talking to their agencies about that. So it sort of said the fragility of your relationship is not particularly very good. So back into the marketplace, giving data into the marketplace, being a focal point that people can sort of come to in the marketplace is really important. And I think if you want to grow stronger foundations in your marketplace, then you have to be interactive within your marketplace. And recruiters are very known for we take. You know, giving back into your marketplace is really important. And whether that be, you know, from a social point of view, from a charity point of view, whether that be quiet, whether it be shout from the hills, you know, what you're doing, I think pushing back into the marketplace is really important. And the things that you were talking about there about, you know, pivoting from not just recruiting, but also training and developing people to get into positions is a next extension for recruitment. Can you help people move further into the marketplace? Looking at clients that are now potentially going to have to become green. I was speaking to a HGV company today about, you know, what they were doing and what they thought about the marketplace, and they were talking about how they can interact in their marketplace. And I said, why not get one of your really top end clients to talk about what's going to happen when electric vehicles become mandatory? How are you going to support that? How are you going to, you know, pivot from what you're doing now, etc., where, you know, as a HGV truck, you're going to have to be stopping probably a reasonable time to charge your truck. What's going to happen to the delivery of goods, the speed of delivery goods? And all these things are things that we should be helping our clients talk to other clients about to create a stronger grow from there. One thing we know that happens in every downturn or every harsh mark is that technology starts to really take off and move fast. So as technology continues to reshape our landscape, what emerging technologies or tools do you believe have the potential to significantly impact growth trajectories of recruitment businesses in the near future?
I can't give you names, but I think, you know, we were at the Recruitment Expo last week, and as ever, I was amazed at the volume, the number of tech companies now that are in our industry. And we all know about ChatGPT and AI, but, you know, when you start to look at the evolution of technology in our industry, it's pretty amazing. We know that there's going to be, and there already is in existence, technology that's going to help us to really engage with our candidates in a way that we've not been able to in the past. We know that there'll be technology that will enable us to reach out and connect with candidates in a way that we've not been able to do up till now. We also know that the AI that's already available will help us to really market our businesses in very short time in a way that can be entirely effective. Back to the point that I think it was Heather that made, or it was Dave actually, 24% of jobs are going to basically change inside the next few years. I think that will be true in our industry too, without a shadow of doubt. And technology will replace a lot of the tasks that we currently have to perform, but it will open doors for us to do things that we should be already trying to do, which is a lot to do with a lot more human interaction and making sure that we become true consultants and moving away from some of the drudgery that sort of pervades our industry that we have no choice but to do, i.e. looking for candidates and so forth. These things have to be done, but we're going to have technology that will enable us to go off and spend so much more time with clients and networking, involved in events, meeting candidates and so forth. So I think we should be kind of welcoming the technology that's coming in our direction. But no question that our landscape will change enormously over the next 5 years. There's no doubt about that.
And of course, Paul, as you say, technology will enable that change. I think the two areas of technology I'd be focusing on, one would be marketing.
Yeah.
Because we need to have the strongest brand awareness that we can have, both our personal brand and our company brand. And the other one at the other end of that scale is compliance. As we grow, compliance is going to be, it always is important, but it's never going to go away. And you know what they say about compliance, it'll never get you promoted, but it will stop you from being fired. And I think it's really important that as we navigate the change that's going to come our way, that we do it in the most compliant way. So from a technology point of view, I'll be looking at marketing and compliance and how those, whatever they are, how they can help you support the business.
Yeah, for me, the tools I think that are going to make the biggest difference are the ones that make communication easier, more efficient, more effective, and more consistent.
Yeah.
You know, we get criticised as an industry for being poor at communicating with candidates. Any technology that we've got, whether it's AI-based, chatbot-based, that can improve the feedback and the communication, that two-way communication with candidates, for me, will be a game changer. In having candidates want to work with agencies rather than feeling we're a bit of a grudge purchase and then they've got no choice.
I think that's a great point. I mean, I hate to use the word processes because every time leaders, they kind of groan. Oh, hello.
Oh. You're still there.
You're all right, Paul. You're still live with us, Paul.
Oh God!
Talking about processes, Paul, and
all of a sudden my screen has gone. I don't know what happened, but I was about to say I think it's about embedded processes. If you look at the really successful businesses in the world, they have processes, very strong processes. We know that because when we deal with them and we're treated well, we have great customer service. You know, there is in a sense a script, a methodology. And although I think recruitment leaders tend to roll their eyes when we talk about processes, embedded processes, they're super important. And I think there's no doubt that technology helps in that respect.
Honestly, there's such a good example of that at the moment. But as you know, I'm in the middle of buying a Tesla. And it is like no experience of buying a car I've ever had in my life. And it is driven by technology. It's a process and it works. And it's honestly game changing. So when I pick my car up tomorrow,
I wondered how long it was going to take you to get that one in.
Get
me in at the last minute.
And it takes 15 stops to get home.
Right? Technology is driving the service relationship.
Yes.
Right? It's all technology.
So as we promote Tesla quite a lot, I think what we're talking about, I think your comment there, Paul, about the drudgery of recruitment, some of that drudgery will be automated.
Yes.
And drive there. But I think the biggest thing that is Dave's comment about, you know, a 6-week strategy and a 6-month strategy rather than short-term, long-term strategy. It's, you know, generating more candidates and finding more candidates. And there are tools out there now that can start to really infiltrate your database, infiltrate LinkedIn, infiltrate the job boards in a far superior way than even their own tools to do that. And we're joined in the first week in November by a lady called Gabby, who's going to come on and talk about a process called Tooled at Raccoons, which is all about creating the old Boolean logic searches, but absolutely will open up your eyes with regards to the amount of candidates that are hidden in your own database, hidden on the job boards, where you're using their filters, but you just can't get access to those candidates. So I think things like that will start to emerge and start to take over. And I think if you want to have the trajectory, then it's the speed that you have that improves your process. So how do you get to your clients quicker, faster, easier? How do you get to your candidates quicker, faster, and easy? And therefore communication comes in. So some of those processes that will be automated means that you can spend more time facing your clients. And I think we've got to sort of look at that heavily. So I think the future is there's a lot of things coming on. Someone mentioned chatbots. You know, as you know, we're experimenting with a chatbot, which is not the normal chatbot. It comes in, you open the chatbot, but that instantly links to a human being who talks to you about what you're looking for from our services. So that'll be up and running on our website in about the next 2 or 3 weeks. But it's a very different thing. So we're going from the technology, but back to that human element, because it's the human element that people want to crave, because most chatbots don't really deliver what most humans actually want. So a chatbot that opens up a human element is a very interesting sort of terminology, phraseology, and we're going to sort of use that and see how it works for us. So final question then. Change management, as we all know, plays a critical role in the success of any growth strategy. So how can recruitment leaders effectively communicate and execute strategy changes in their teams, which then will ensure alignment and smooth transition into the market as it starts to improve?
I love this question, Howard. Change management's my favourite training program to run with clients. I've run it with a few this year, and it's absolutely my favourite. And one of the bits which is so often a light bulb moment when you're talking to leaders about change is when you talk to them about the change curve, right? You all know about that classic change curve that everybody goes through with all this different process. And for me, the real light bulb moment comes when you explain to people that not everybody is on the same place on the change curve as you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you don't understand where you are on the change curve and where they are on the change curve and match your communication to that, yeah, then you're never gonna get your change to be successful. And when you explain that in a training setting, and you can just see all these light bulbs go, oh yeah, you know, and people can see where they've gone wrong in the past. So I think if you get a chance to have a read about the change curve, there's loads of stuff online about it. Ring me up, I'll talk to you about it. You've got to have people in the same place in understanding the change as you at the same time. Communicate.
Yeah. And that's the thing, isn't it? It's about the communication.
Yeah.
Because people think about change as in we're doing this today, and then next month we'll do something different, and let's talk about how we get from there to there. But actually, it's fluid.
Yes.
Everything changes all the time, and if you're standing still, people, markets, candidates,
they're changing around you.
Yeah, move past you. So change is just part of your everyday management. I mean, that should be something that they should be talking about if you have a weekly stand-up, or you have a scrum or whatever methodology you use. You know, what have you changed today? What's on the horizon? How have you communicated it? They should just be part of our businesses now, because that's the world in which we live.
I couldn't agree more with you guys. At the end of the day, look, the velocity of change, the actual direction and the extremes in change should dictate your level of communication. So if there are an awful lot of changes happening, lots of things going on, that means you need to be communicating consistently, loudly, in a very eloquent fashion, and ensuring that people understand entirely where the business is heading. And you made, I mean, very eloquently, you made that point, Heather. I think it is all about communication. You know, there's no point in charging off in a direction that you think is the right strategy for the business, only to discover nobody else is with you.
Yeah, you've got to take them with you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And people want information. You know, people are nervous of change. And what they really want from you as a leader is to know that the business is in safe hands, that you have a very clear head to that point on the slide right now, and that you know exactly what you're doing, even if as the leader you're not entirely sure. But that decisive leadership and communicating it in an inspiring fashion. And history is full of, let's be honest, inspiring speeches from leaders during critical times, crisis moments. I'm not suggesting we are in that place, but we definitely need to be inspiring particularly during times when it's tough. And I think communication is everything.
So I think when you sort of think about that comment about communication and taking people with you and people being on the same journey at the same time, etc., we've got to start to think that communication isn't just about verbal. It's about everything else. It's about your body. It's about your written word. It's about every way that you communicate to your people. And you've got to get people involved in that communication to, drive the business forward and be purposeful within the business. And that links back to the simple thing. It's all about your values. It's all about your mission statement on where you're going, and people being part of that mission, and they can see their part of the journey on that mission statement. And I think that's the biggest sort of enlightenment. If you can't see your part of the journey and everything around you looks black, then you're going to look for the light and get out very quickly. But if you can see the journey, you can see how people are leading you forward, then you will follow that person. And that goes back to that old comment that, managers don't have followers, leaders have followers. So as a leader of your business, you've got to lead that communication change, and you've got to show people the direction that you're going in, and you've got to help them to understand what their part of the journey is, so that they feel part of the journey and they feel part of something that is moving forward, and they gather momentum. And it goes back to starting the business momentum. More people who are on that journey, more people are pushing that journey, the more momentum gathers, and the quicker the momentum gets, the quicker the business will come out of the other side and start to grow and grow quickly. So I think there's loads of things that we can talk about on that sort of communication front of change management that happens. But to me, it's that your comment there about the change curve is very important. But I think it's the realization that for you to help other people to change, they have to understand the why, the purpose, and be embroiled in the mission of change, not just being left on the sidelines.
Yep.
So that's it for today. A very interesting conversation where Mr. Jacobs and Heather actually agreed on something for a nanosecond and then completely disagreed. That was really good.
That's the normal.
The world is changing.
Next week, we're going to talk about something that we've talked about before, but I think in this time, it's a really important thing. It's about setting targets that innovate and drive. And we've all seen this year how certain companies have set massive acceleration targets and then failed to hit, and it's had a massive demotivation on their staff. We've seen other clients set targets that are too low, and they've massively smashed them. It's given them a false sort of sense of capability, etc., etc. So next week, we're going to talk about setting targets that will inspire people to enable your company to grow and scale. So everybody, thank you very much for your time. Look forward to seeing you all next week. It's been emotional as always. See you all again.
Thank you. See you soon.
See you
Bye,
soon.
everybody. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.